You're kind of the enforcer of the birth plan, but you're also the protector of mom. So it's your job to make sure that whatever she desires happens and to be in communication with her along the way. It doesn't look like you're going to be asking her a bunch of questions, especially things she has to say more than a yes, no to. But you do want to be able to check in with her in some way. And so that communication, hopefully you guys are good at that before labor begins, but you'll be able to tell by her body language, you know her best. And when certain things are being recommended or said, you can pick up on how she's feeling and what she needs. Getting pregnant and giving birth are two of the most exciting things you can ever hope to experience in this life. The moment you think you could be pregnant, you're frantically searching for all the best information, which is why you're here today. I'm Stephanie King, and with my many years of experience as a professional childbirth educator, doula, and lover of all things pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, I'm here to make preparing for your birth enjoyable, empowering, and totally easy. Each week, I'll cover different topics, interview professionals, and get into the nitty-gritty birth stories from mamas just like you. And when you're ready for more, you can join me in the My Essential Birth course at myessentialbirth.com, where I take you step by step through exactly how to prepare your mind, body, spirit, and partner for a birth you love. So let's get started. Let's dive into this episode, which is all about 7 ways that your birth partner can support you during pregnancy, labor, and birth. So let's hear it. I think your birth partner plays a pretty crucial role when it comes to your pregnancy and birth. Obviously, they helped you get there. They definitely need to be a part of the process. And I think there's nothing that's going to bring you guys closer. That's just the process of being pregnant and giving birth together. And as time goes on and as you have more babies, if that is what you choose to do, I think that bond just increases and it gets better and better over time. And it's challenges like learning how to do it a couple of times or working through the process of it that really does bond you guys together. And the truth is, like, we need each other. Mom and dad need each other through this process, and moms especially need dads to do some specific things during labor for the process to go smoothly. So let's talk about those today. The first, I think as we go through, these are going to seem obvious, most of them. I'm going to give you very specific things that you can do too that you may not be thinking of, even things to take with you to help along the way. But I think that's okay. I want them. I don't think there's any like big, flashing lights, like aha moment here. I think as I go through these, you're going to be like, okay, yeah. And sometimes it just takes somebody kind of like saying it out loud for you to be like, okay, that's what I thought. And so now I can kind of go off of what I was feeling. So with that, number 1, be an active participant all along the way. And that includes learning. So like the big thing with dads, right? Especially when we're talking about like birth courses and stuff, or like learning, maybe listening to the podcast, things like that. You want them to be engaged as much as possible. And so dads, if you're here listening today, as boring as it may sound, once you start learning, I know that you're actually going to be getting excited about the information. And I know because I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who tell me all about this, and my husband was one of them. So, but you need to be informed. Dads need to understand the process just as well as moms, because mom will be at a point during her labor where we call it labor land, right? And she won't be necessarily, not that she won't be clear-minded enough, but she might not be able to verbalize the things that she needs to be done during the process. And so dad should know very well what she desires, but also know her. You need to know her and who she is and why she wants the things that she wants so that you feel comfortable and kind of stand as that rock advocating for her. But as far as like what to know for the process, and dads do get excited about this along the way, but understanding how the body works. So understanding what tests are coming up, how to speak with providers, what questions you bring, and all of that is wonderful. Understanding how the physical body works and the mental and emotional side of things. But the mechanics of the body is actually, I feel like, probably one of the most interesting things to men. And actually, I think it's equally as interesting to women. But because men are that way, like they want to be able to fix things, what can they do to like step in? And they have to understand what's happening in order to be able to do that. So understanding the processes of birth, and that includes that like what's happening during pregnancy, what happens early first stage. So during those early contractions, and what's mom doing and how is she feeling, and what are some different things that she can do to work through them, what's happening on the inside, that dilation and station and effacement, and all the things that are happening to baby and cervix, that movement and all that stuff. On to that, the next part, that active stage of labor, into transition. So active stages where things get longer, stronger contractions, longer, stronger, closer together, more intense, mom's more focused, and into transition. So transition, and if dads know this is coming, then they know how to stand strong and be supportive of mom when it's happening. And certainly dads, if you've been at a birth before here with your lovely wife or your birth partner, and you've seen them kind of work through this before, then certainly the next time becomes a little bit easier to be like, okay, she needs encouragement and love right now. Like she can do this. We just need to get through this portion here. But even if it is just your first time, just know that after contractions are really long and strong and close together, so maybe they're coming every 2 minutes and they're lasting for a minute to a minute and a half, she's barely getting a break. They're right on top of each other, right? They hit this point where it's like, yeah, I can't, like mom feels like I can't do this anymore, But what's happening inside is that final stretch of the cervix. And there's a lot of things happening inside, but it really is just that final push into that like complete dilation and the movement of the baby down into that Ferguson reflex, which tells her to push. And so when dads learn and they understand, and you're like, okay, yeah, she's going to feel like I can't do this anymore. And that's like, a very common time to like, just give me the epidural. Like I really, really cannot do this anymore if you're in a hospital setting. Dads just know, you look at her and you say, look at me, like open your eyes, look at me. You are doing it. You are doing it right now. So learning along the way, really having the education behind it. And then along with mom's preferences, what is important to her and why. If she talks to you and she tells you like, look, I don't want to wear the hospital clothes and I don't want an IV, and you guys go into the hospital setting and the providers are like, yeah, but just in case, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, why don't you just do that? But in the back of your head, you're like, no, like I know that if I have something in my arm, it's going to bug me the whole time and I'm not going to be able to relax during contractions. Or if I have to wear these clothes and I'm worried about this and that. If you know that those things are going to bug you or that they're important to you for whatever reason, you have to relay that to dad. You have to tell your birth partner, and he has to be invested into the why behind you're doing what you're doing. Because when those things come up, you want him to be on your team all the way. And not just because she said so, although that's great. If there's nothing else happening there, like you better at least be supporting mom, right? But what we're hoping for is that because of that communication and you really, really knowing and loving her, that dads, you're going to be like, yes, 100%. Like, I totally get why she needs this. And so when nurse is saying whatever and mom's trying to like focus through her contractions, you can just step in and say, hey, we talked about this before. That's really important to her. We'd really just like that to be the case, please. And people back off. She's like, okay, what are you going to say? So dads really need to know the whys behind it, and the what to expect, right? And then I think along with that knowledge comes what's physiologically normal. So understanding what is normal for birth and what can be a little bit tricky. That way, when providers are making recommendations during labor, you can say like, oh, I already know that that's actually like something that's normal, that actually in this setting isn't maybe treated as normal. And so we've already made a decision about this, or I'm like comfortable telling mom that like, hey, this is just a normal part of labor and this is stuff that they have to offer you or say to you, but whatever you want to do is okay. But dads need to understand the why behind that. So when they're communicating with the people, with the providers and things, or they're receiving recommendations, they know why you would be choosing to do one thing or the other. Understanding how birth works goes along with that, the process of birth, kind of like I talked about. So not just what's happening with mom and inside the body, but what's happening with baby and all of that. And that it doesn't always go exactly as you would plan it to go. So it doesn't always, moms have an average labor of 12 hours and they progress about a centimeter an hour, whatever it is. That's not exactly how it goes, even though that might be how it is wanted to go in certain settings. So understanding that is really important. And then the how to best support you. So that can look different for every mom. And I kind of say like, if you know your love language, that's a really good one. If you know your Enneagram, so like how you deal with situations and people in those situations, and how you need support. Is it hands-on stuff? Do you really like massage? Is he going to have to be talking to you the whole time? Do you want somebody to repeat affirmations? Does he just need to put the music on? How to best support you. So you guys need to talk and work through all of that. Number 2, emotional support and encouragement. And I talked about that briefly as part of how to understand, the information that's coming at you. But understanding that emotional support and encouragement can look different for each person. So yes, saying certain things that can look like the kind of support that a mom needs. Saying, I'm so proud of you and you're doing amazing and we're so close to meeting our baby and keep at it. That's really motivating for some moms. It might look like just standing there and being there and holding her hand and giving her a kiss on the cheek and breathing with her. So that emotional support can look different for each mom. And so really understanding what she needs and talking about that before the birthing process is going to be really important. Number 3, hands-on support. This is the fun stuff. I think it's all good. The fun stuff in the sense that this is where dads feel like they're doing something, and that's awesome. And they're strong. Men are strong. And so when they do this hands-on support, it's exactly what we need. So hip squeezes are one of the hands-on support that sometimes dads end up in hip squeeze and they are not allowed to leave until the labor is over. So be prepared for that. We always say, Dad, you should be doing a couple of push-ups every day, right? At least 10, 20, 30 push-ups a day, because that double hip squeeze is going to work you right here in the chest, and you're squeezing and you're using all your might, and you're just going to need those muscles in that area. But if you practice that prior to birth, then it'll be so much better when it's go time, because you really do kind of have to find the sweet spot with your hands, with your palms in your hands, and mess around with it with mom. So mom on hands and knees, dad leaned over, doing the hip squeeze. And then you're hip squeeze a little bit higher, a little bit lower, a little bit closer, put your hands a little bit closer together or a little farther apart, and just get a sense of what feels good and what doesn't. Because what can happen is during labor, mom's needing that support and she wants something hands-on, and it would feel so good if she got the pressure, but it's not happening in the right place. And so she ends up saying, no, thanks, don't touch me, when really what she's saying is, you need to find the right spot because this is driving me nuts. So that is why we practice it prior. Supported squats, again, use our strong men, right? Supported squats are mom squatting down, dad standing up, and you get to arms up, lean onto him. So he's got a good grip on your arms. Your arms are straight up while you're in a squat, and you can just relax. You lean into the squat. He's totally holding you nice and strong. You can lean forward, lean back, kind of rock side to side. Supported squat is really, really awesome. And along with that, right, hands up, we talk about that labor dance that moms and dads do. So standing just face to face, and mom has her arms around dad. And again, just leaning on him and moving side to side. We call it that labor dance, where you're rocking and moving your hips, but having that closeness and that safety and that strength from dad is really, really important. Massage is another one, but this is one of them that I tell you guys, you have to practice this prior to labor. And even prior to labor, it can be a little bit funky. Some days you might want some really hard pressure. Some days you might want it a little bit softer. I always tell moms, and dads love it, right? Show dad exactly what you want. You're going to massage him exactly like you want to be massaged, and then he's going to repeat it back. So it'll show the pressure, the distance between your hands, how quick or how slow, and then how much in one spot or not. Because that is a really common thing that I see. You're up for long times and you're working at labor really hard and you're exhausted. And so dad's, rubbing mom, but it's just this tired hand in the same spot, going the same place, back and forth. And you're just oh my gosh, yeah, that would drive me nuts too, right? So mom's don't touch me. And it's no, wait, actually, I would love you to touch me. I just need you to touch me the right way. So practice that massage. Don't be so much in one spot. Always do things in threes. For example, if you go from the top of the back down to the buttocks, you're going to go one swipe. And before that hand leaves the skin, your other hand is on top, right back at the top of the shoulder, and then the other hand leaves and it comes back down. That's the second one. Other hand, top of the shoulder, right? So you want the touches to be constant and also not irritating. So go in swipes of 3 and then move places, and always down and out. So like from the shoulder to the hand, not hand to the shoulder. Does that make sense? Down and out. You want the energy to be able to kind of flow out the body. And then holding hands, like that might sound silly, but that is hands-on support. And 100% that was like what I needed from my husband during our birth. And I've talked about this before. I love massage. I love hands-on anything. But when it came down to it, I didn't want that from him at that time. I didn't want him to really talk to me about a lot of things. I really just needed his hand and for him to be there. And I just wanted to hold his hand. So definitely plan on being close by. And like I said, make sure that you practice these while you are pregnant. Another thing that you can do along with that hands-on support and practicing prior to labor is relaxation. And you'll do that together. And that can look like many different things. I won't go into all the details of that right now. But basically, anytime that you practice relaxation and you're doing it together, dad can be a part of it. So mom, if you're practicing breathing, he can put his hand on your belly and lay behind you and say, just raise my hand up, just use your belly. Like try not to breathe through your chest, just through your belly. Or he can give you cues like, relax with the sound of my voice. And then he'll say different things. And while touching them, like relax your eyebrows, relax your cheekbones, relax your jaw, relax your neck. And he's touching those things as he says it. And then you can practice with only words. And then next time you do only the touch. And that way it's like your body will recognize that and your mind will know exactly what is being asked of you during labor time if you practice that before. So that's all stuff that you can do prior to and during labor. Another one is to make her smile. In fact, I have been with a few couples actually where like dad like knew his role, and I don't even know if it was talked about beforehand, but like his role was to joke around with mom and keep it lighthearted. And it is so welcome in the birth space. So unless, you're telling dad jokes that she's not laughing at and she's like, please shut up. But otherwise, however you guys like get along and goof around during pregnancy or during life, you can bring that into labor with you and it can be really fun. And then again, just be strong, hold her up. Help her turn over during labor, be her rock, help her get on and off the toilet, like honestly, whatever she needs. And she needs your strength during this time. Be that for her. Number 4, reminding mom to change positions. So this might sound a little silly, but this is actually something like even as doulas, like we are trained to do this. Moms need to be changing positions about every 30 minutes. It's not perfect, so you don't need to exactly stick to a schedule, but pay attention to mom and how she's feeling and what she's doing. The reason that we do that has to do with the pain gate. And if you're in the birth course, you know that I talk about this. But basically, you have little receptors that go up to your mind and say this hurts or it doesn't or whatever. And when you're getting these receptors that say it hurts and you change positions, then it kind of messes with them a little bit. It confuses them, it jumbles them, and it doesn't necessarily hurt as much, or it gives you a distraction if nothing else. And so mom should be moving positions about every 30 minutes. So, and the thing is, like when you're in labor, you have no idea what's happening with the time. And that I could actually add that to dad's list of what to do, like make sure clocks are gone, because moms will either like stare at them intensely, right? Or want to completely ignore them and can't. So definitely get the clock out of there. And really when you're like tuned into your body and it's focused time and your eyes are closed, it's not going to matter anyways. But every 30 minutes, mom should be changing position. And that's just, it encourages the natural progression of labor. When you're moving your hips, you're moving your body, baby's able to get up and move. Yeah, they're walking around in there. They are able to kind of like move around with your body and like they work their way through the pelvic area. And they definitely have a bunch of stuff that they're doing while they're in there as well. And so movement is really, really important. That can look like if mom's laying on her side, you help her switch to the other side, helping her walk around, making sure that she's like, hey, let's go for a walk for a little bit. You can do leaning over the bed with a birth ball or standing and leaning over the bed. You can do lunges. Lunges can feel great. Squatting, hands and knees. Certainly, if she ends up having an epidural, you want to make sure that she's switching sides and that you ask for a peanut ball, although peanut ball and switching sides can be done and should be done without an epidural if you're in the bed as well. Hanging over the toilet, getting in and out of the shower, whatever the position is, she should just be able to do several of them. Stairs, I'm sure there's something. I'm sure there's a million that I'm missing. There's a bunch of different positions and then all the things that she can do with Dad as well. But just make sure that about every 30 minutes you are changing positions. And along with that would be using the restroom. Like that's a good time to like, hey, let's get up from the bed and go take a walk and use the restroom. It's another thing that can help labor progress because when mom's bladder is full, it can actually inhibit the progress of labor and inhibit dilation. So there you go. Number 5 is advocating for mom with the birth team. And maybe I should have put that one up higher because once you know all of the things that mom wants, kind of we talked about number 1, then you're going to want to be able to do that in practice, which looks like standing up for what she needs and saying it out loud. You're kind of the enforcer of the birth plan, but you're also the protector of mom. So it's your job to make sure that whatever she desires happens and to be in communication with her along the way. It doesn't look like you're going to be asking her a bunch of questions, especially things she has to say more than a yes, no to. But you do want to be able to check in with her in some way. And so that communication, hopefully you guys are good at that before labor begins, but you'll be able to tell by her body language, you know her best. And when certain things are being recommended or said, you can pick up on how she's feeling and what she needs. And a lot of times it will even as labor progresses and things are, providers, they're interesting. Sometimes they're super respectful and totally get it. And other times it's just like they're busy and it's just part of the day or they're not thinking, I don't know. But they'll say things in the birth space while mom's busy doing her work, almost in a way like mom doesn't hear it, which is so silly. Moms hear everything and it affects them like 10 times more than it would otherwise. So she's taking in all that information and her mind and body is reacting to it as she's hearing it. So when provider comes in, either a nurse or a doctor or midwife, they come in and they say something like, I don't know, we're checking out these fetal tones. We're not sure how we feel about them. We'll come back in 20 minutes and check again. Mom heard that. Now her body's reacting. Now she's worried. Now she's like, no, and nobody answered any questions and all the things that goes on in your head. And here comes another contraction. Well, I'm trying to think about all this stuff. So it's really important that Dad, you kind of like stand at that place and you ask questions that you know she's going to want the answers to so that she can hear it while she's laboring. And also that when these people come into the room, before, during, and after, when you are talking to them, that you are saying things like, you are doing a great job, honey. Keep it up. Like, isn't she doing such a great job? And the only thing they're going to be able to say is yes, of course, And so when they're saying something like, oh, we're not sure about these heart rates or whatever, well, she's doing such a great job. And what are you concerned about with the heart rate? Can you tell me a little bit more? Just getting information, being really positive, using the nurses or doctors, first name or doctor, whatever, respectfully, however you want to respectfully address them. And so mom knows who they are too. Like, oh, yes, Nurse Stephanie, we're, thank you for taking such good care of us. And isn't she doing so great? And honey, you're doing so good. Keep it up. And that kind of attitude just transfers. It transfers to the birth team. And so if you can have that happy, positive attitude as best as you can, that will transfer. And then getting all that information. So you're announcing who they are, like, hey, nurse, whoever, hey, doctor, whatever. And then you're asking those questions that she would want to hear. And then always make sure that you're kind of using that BRAIN acronym. Oh, what are the benefits of doing what you're recommending? Are there any risks involved? Are there any alternatives? And, and then mom can lean on what's your intuition telling you? And do you want to just say no, or that you need some more time? And in the meantime, you can say, okay, yeah, I'd love to discuss that with her. She's working really well through these contractions. So I'll give her a couple more and we can discuss that and get back to you. That is what it looks like to advocate for the birthing mom. So do that thing. And then number 6, offer mom sips of water is important. Yeah, we talked about going to the bathroom. It's because you will be drinking lots of water because you will get dehydrated if you do not. So dads, your job is to offer lots of water. And I'll give you a couple of other things in number 7, like very specific things that you can do also. But water. You want to keep mom hydrated. And you can add other things to that. It doesn't have to just be water. If Gatorade sounds good, or popsicles or, whatever they have at these birth places. And no, I'm not recommending actually a ton of sugar. I think it'll make you feel sick, and what it does to your insulin and the glucose and all of that kind of stuff and your blood sugar, like it just spikes everything. It's not super great. When you need a burst of energy, there's certainly some things that you can do. And if that's what you need, then that's what you do. But either way, lots of sips of water throughout. And it'll happen like by the time that mom is like, oh my gosh, I need water, you're dehydrated. So if you're doing sips of water throughout, you don't want to get to that place where you're like, all of a sudden I need to gulp like all these cups of water because I've been working hard and I haven't been drinking. I mean, if she does get to that point, you want to let her have a lot of water too. But you won't be thinking about your water intake likely during labor unless you hit that point of dehydration. So you guys talk about this before, but dads, you should be offering it lots and lots and lots of times, so anytime she's changing position, anytime she's using the restroom, like just think of every 30 minutes at a minimum, and then mom take more sips in between if you can. Otherwise, give it a good go about every 30 minutes. But so if you're thinking of the every 30-minute rule, and I don't know that it's actually a rule, but we'll say just every 30 minutes, you're going to offer sips of water, have her go to the bathroom, and change positions. And it can be in whatever order makes sense, but just make sure that it happens. Number 7, be prepared. So I'm going to give you a couple of things that you can do or bring with you that will help you be a little bit more prepared when it is go time. Bring chapstick. So make sure, mom's going to have her packing list and everything. You double check that with her and you know where everything is. Because if mom packs her own bag, then first of all, we might want to make sure that she has everything. But second, if you don't know where things are and she's in labor, she's going to be like, she's either going to be like, I don't care. I can't physically, I can't focus on this right now. Or she's going to be throwing her stuff all over the place, trying to find it and just being upset about it. So you're going to bring chapstick. You're going to make sure that her bag has whatever it needs, right? Cell phone chargers and all of that kind of stuff. Before you get to the hospital, you guys are going to make a playlist together. It can be meditation sounds or your favorite music. Maybe you have some different playlists that you put together, like this is the pump up one, and this is for when the baby's being born, and this is for when it's time to relax. Whatever that looks like and whatever you want to put on there, do it, but make sure that you do it beforehand and that you have it available. Bluetooth speaker and an option for something in the ears if that's what she desires. I would also say bring some earplugs. Sometimes you don't want to hear anything, or you want to be able to hear, but you just want it to be a little bit more quiet. I do this in my home office, guys. My office is in my bedroom, and when my kids are being loud and whatever, I'm like, earplugs it is. I still want to hear what's going on out there in case I need to help with anything, but also it helps me focus, and it does the same thing during labor. So make sure that you bring that. Set the mood. That is your job, to put up flicker candles or turn off the lights, or make sure she has any blankets and extra pillows, anything like that beforehand. I would also, if you are birthing in a hospital setting or in a birth center, which they'll usually tell you in a birth center where things are, but in a hospital setting, first thing I do as a doula when I walk into a birth room is I go through all the cabinets. Okay, where are the checks pads? Where's the extra underwear and all of the stuff for mom? And then I want to know where the pillows are and the extra pillowcases and the blankets and the washcloths and whatever else I need, and the sink and the bath. I want to be familiar with the entire room. So I highly recommend, dads, that you take a couple of minutes to do that as well. Just go through it all. If there's not a lock on it, you can look and take a look and see what you need. Washcloths, for example, as labor goes on and mom gets hot, you put water on them and wring them out and you whip them around, and it makes them really cool, and you can put it on her chest or her neck or her forehead or wherever feels good. So there's little things like that are just really, really useful to know and to be aware of. Bring a heat pack. So we always say, right, if you need just a quick, and it works perfectly, you guys, and it is so cheap. You just grab one of your husband's long socks. You just do a long sock, you put a bunch of rice in it and tie it off, and you can heat it up, and the rice holds the heat wonderfully. And I always say bring 2 to 3 so that you can swap them around. You can also bring an essential oil along with that. You can drip it right on there, or you can have mom smell the essential oil while you do the rice. Rice doesn't necessarily have the greatest smell, but it doesn't smell super bad in my opinion either. So I know some moms like to put lavender or whatever in the rice sock and move it around and then heat it up. So, but you should have access to a microwave even at whatever birth center you're at or whatever hospital you're at. And in my opinion, they will last longer and better than doing the heat pads or the heat packs that they break and bring to you and then die. And you're like, okay, I have to ask for 20 more of these because labor is lasting a long time and she's got back labor, Bring your own stuff. I think it works so much better. Bring snacks for yourself and for mom. You should absolutely have something to fuel yourself, and make sure that it is not just a bunch of carbs like crackers and chips and dip and whatever. You want to bring either like something with protein, and protein bars can work. I like to bring things like beef jerky or like turkey sticks, something that has a little bit more to it. And if there is an opportunity and you have somebody to switch you out and labor is a long time and mom is resting and doesn't need you, yes, there can be an option to go and grab something. I always say go and grab something and eat it quickly rather than having something come to the room, because mom's smells are heightened just like in pregnancy, but even more so in labor, and she might just be super mad if you do that. In fact, I did have a dad, and I can't remember what he ordered exactly, he ordered food, and it came in and there were like these chili fry, like you could smell all of it, and it was garlic something. And I remember mom just like glaring, and I'm like, yeah, exactly. Thought we talked about that. But those smells, it's real. So you bring snacks for you, snacks for mom. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself too. Stay hydrated and all of that kind of stuff, because you don't want to tank when she needs you most. So keep that in mind. Pee before you can't pee anymore. There is going to come a point where you are not going to be able to leave mom no matter what your body needs to do. And of course, if you get into an emergency situation and you have to leave, you're going to have to leave, and then it's just not going to be good. So anytime that there's free time and you feel like you need to pee, do it before she hits. It'll happen without you even realizing that you are not going to have another chance. So trust me, use the restroom. Bring deodorant and toothpaste. That is a must. Moms don't want to smell stinky people, any kinds. And I would say bring gum too, or some kind of mint, something that you want to be fresh. Okay. Make sure it's not like a strawberry this, or your deodorant is some really strong, almost like a cologne kind of smell. And I just, unless it's something she absolutely loves. But if it's, I would say just like something normal and low scent for sure. Lastly, for dads, and this is all part of being prepared at number 7. I know I shoved a lot of stuff in here, but I thought some specifics were really important. I would say hire a doula. I think it is the best investment. I think mom will appreciate it. I think you will appreciate it. It's something that you don't have to do and that you can support on your own. And I recommend hiring a doula. And I don't just recommend it because I'm a doula. I recommend it because I had a doula. And my husband is the same. He talks about it in the birth course. He goes, and we didn't have one till our 3rd birth. In fact, with our first, I didn't know about them at all. With our second, I was like, I really want one. But he's like, why would I be hiring somebody to do my job? Like, I just did all this training with you, whatever. And he felt that way actually with our 3rd birth, but that birth was at home. And so he just agreed to allow me to hire a doula. And it was nice of him to agree. I was going to hire the doula no matter what. So doula came, and he was like, that was the best thing ever. Like, she was just there supporting. Like, I felt like I could fully support, and she was just, I don't know. And it was great for both of us, because then I was like, I trust what she's saying. Like, when she tells me I'm doing great, I don't know. It is so, so worth it. And it's for dads. It is not just for moms. Doulas are for dads too. Lastly, I wanted to give you kind of a what not to do list. So those are all of the really good, important things to do. Here's what not to do. Don't fall asleep. Now, if you are a dad that like works late hours, or you know your body and you're going to fall asleep, or whatever, that you're going to come up against that, then you absolutely hire a doula or have her mom come. If that is a good person to have in the room, she needs support. So if you know that that's something you're going to be dealing with, then definitely make sure that she has the support that she needs. Don't eat yummy, smelly food during labor. Don't choose anything that has really strong scents. Even the beef jerky and stuff, like I use like it would be like teriyaki or unscented, unflavored. And you want to make sure, like, I open it before I get there. Because the first time you open the beef jerky, how it's like a really strong smell. You want to pick things that like they have almost no scent to them. So pay attention to that. And then don't be easily offended. Do not be easily offended. Like, talk about this before you go into labor, before mom's in labor, because it's not uncommon for dads to get offended during labor, but it's also not necessary. Mom is doing her thing and she's focused, and a lot of times her responses are kind of like quick to the point, maybe a little snappy, or it seems that way. It's just because she has to communicate quick and she needs to get the information across like immediately. But it doesn't mean that she is mad at you or anything like that. Trust me, I promise. Once that baby is here, she is just going to be like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have done this without you. Thank you for existing and being here with me. So trust me on that one. And then do not leave her side unless she asks you to. So that's where I was like, when you have to pee or you have to eat or whatever, you don't just leave. Do not do it. You talk with her and you talk with her closely. And oftentimes, earlier in labor, moms will be like, hey, like, I'm feeling good right now. Like, you should go eat before you don't have a chance. And anyway, so go off of what mom is saying 110%. But those are my 7 ways that dads can support moms during labor. I hope you enjoyed it. If you guys have any other questions or you have other recommendations that you want to add on, go ahead and shoot me an email at hello@myessentialbirth.com or hit me up at myessentialbirth on Instagram, and I will add it to this week's posts, or I'll talk about it on IG stories. So you guys have a great week, and I will see you next time. If you loved what you heard today, the very best way to support this podcast and help other moms to find it is to leave a quick review. I read one at the beginning of the episodes, and I would love for yours to be next. And if you're ready for even more pregnancy, birth, and postpartum goodness, come join me in the My Essential Birth course at myessentialbirth.com, where I will hold your hand and walk you through pregnancy and birth step by step so you're totally prepared for a birth you'll love. See you next week.